I was just thinking about this issue of self-isolation and how it may have effects on all of us. Well, it will have effects on all of us, but there is something that concerns me somewhat, not so much for myself. But who knows, as time goes on, it may impact me as well. I'm thinking about mental health and loneliness from the self-isolation. Now, I live by myself, and that's not an issue. Because up till now, obviously, I can go outside. I have a good friend that comes here occasionally. We'll watch films. I volunteer in a shop. I don't even know if that's going to continue at this point. So speaking from my own point of view, I'm not overly worried about that because I mean I'm working from home. I teach online, so by the nature of my work, I'll be speaking to my students online. And I have several social media connections, so that connection's going to be there. Actually, interestingly enough, it could be an example of where social media is a good thing because it's might be a necessity. Um, but I am somewhat concerned about people who may be a bit more vulnerable, maybe older people. And I don't want to say collectively old people because, some older people are quite technically savvy. So I don't think we should just treat all old people as like sort of one and the same. But it is true that it's just more likely that people in their 80s and 90s are less likely to be using social media. Um, so without that social media, and if they're self-isolating, it could be a real issue with loneliness and the health impact resulting from that. So I think it's important that at this point, before the government mandates anything, because at the moment it is still strong advice as opposed to a mandate, and I will come to that in a second. People maybe need to be saying to the relatives, setting up Skype connections or making them comfortable with using those sort of things at this point before they're isolated from them. Let's say, for example, you have an elderly father or mother who lives by themselves, they don't live with you, and the government's mandating that they need to stay in the home and you can't visit them. That's going to cause a lot of strain for a lot of people. And I don't criticize the government for that. In fact, I've noticed a lot of Italian people have been saying, look, we were complacent about this in Italy, and this is what happened. In fact, many people are saying, I was speaking to my Chinese student today, and he was saying that in China they actually have drones to tell people to go home if they go outside. So, at some point, I think the government is going to have to get a lot stricter and actually have perhaps even curfews or I was going to say police patrols maybe, but that might even the police are going to be in the same situation. So I'm not sure how it's practically possible if the government goes down that line. But this is definitely going to, what we are seeing now. I think we're going to see a lot more strain in the coming weeks and months. I think we're going to hit the peak in about, I have no idea. I would loosely guess maybe about a few weeks or a month from now, we might see the peak of difficulties, and then it might gradually kind of pan out. I looked at a very interesting infographic video yesterday which showed how it's better if this actually spreads out over a time and it kind of hits this curvature. I'll put a link if I can under this. That's better than having a sort of instantaneous peak, what happened in Italy that kind of overwhelmed their healthcare system. Um, I think that's why it got so bad in Italy because it happened so quickly. But I don't think it's going to be necessarily so much different in other countries. Spain's already starting to see similar levels to what Italy is at, and it's only a matter of time before we do. I believe the UK has the eighth highest number of deaths in the world, so this is going to happen sooner or later in this country we're going to have a situation where we're all in an uncomfortable situation. Like I say, for me, I can work from home, so it's not such a big strain for me. But I do sympathize with people. uh, I mean, have a lot of sympathy for small businesses. I have a lot of sympathy. I didn't mention this in the last video, but people who are traveling. And some people might be quite cold and say, oh, well, they shouldn't have traveled. But you need to understand they may have been on long holidays, and this thing has only really developed in the last few months. They may have been on work. Like I was working in China for half a year. So there's a lot of situations that people are in. I saw one young woman, she was on holiday in Peru, and she was interviewed by Skype from her hotel in Lima, and she's stuck in the country. There's going to be a lot of people in these sort of situations. I have enormous sympathy for them because it's not only stressful, it will be a period of great anxiety. So I really do have a lot of sympathy for people in that situation. One thing to take from it is this is not going to last forever. At some point it will end, but there's good and bad. The bad is obvious. It's a pandemic. Um, it may cause a global recession. It may It's already caused social implications. I mentioned the racist attacks on East Asians, but also tensions between countries, the blame game. Although I still think China's in no position to be pointing fingers at anyone, but um, social implications insofar as people just being stupid. I mean, I saw footage from Melbourne, shopping centre in Melbourne. People were actually getting in fist fights over the last food, men and women. It's crazy. It's like this sort of mentality might set in. Um, but on the other hand, it's an opportunity to do things that we didn't previously maybe do so much. Read a book, rekindle old hobbies, think, So actually, I mentioned the social media could be a tool of keeping in touch with people, but it could also be an opportunity to get away from social media and just read a good old-fashioned book, you know. And spend time maybe slowing down. That in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing because work and just stress probably causes no shortage of anxiety and um, health problems around the world. So, in societies that are very intense work driven, I'm thinking of Japan, Taiwan, Britain to some extent. I think reducing that is not necessarily a bad thing. People spending more time with their families. Its families are going to be quarantined together. Um, Things like that are not necessarily a bad thing. And for the planet, like I say, it really is good for the planet. Less pollution. Now, whatever way we look at it, that is a good thing. So the planet's going to get a bit of a break, in a sense. But I think if anything good comes from this, and I use the term loosely, but if anything good comes from this, maybe it is an opportunity to kind of show, well, let's just slow down. Life doesn't need to be such a big, big rush. We all need to slow down. We need to calm down because things that we looked at, things that were really intense before, like the culture wars, things like this thing really is affecting absolutely everything. It could change the world. I don't think that's hyperbole. I think this pandemic could change the world, and hopefully for the better. But that's not to, don't get me wrong, I'm not trivializing it. I'm not making light of what it is, but maybe some good can come from it. My mum said my younger sister has serious health problems. She has allergies, she has fibromyalgia, she's a whole host of health problems. My mum actually observed that maybe it will be an opportunity for people to be a bit more considerate and consider people who are in situations like my sister. Um, so let me know your situation. Do you live by yourself? Do you live with your family? Um, are you personally concerned about your situation? What country are you in? How do you feel about the situation in your country? At this point, I'm not. too worried about the social thing because I've spent, I live by myself generally. It will, I mean, I don't think we can put on a brave face and say, oh, it's going to be fine. I think we will feel the strain at some point. We will kind of get impatient and just want to go outside. I think fresh air is important, so keeping windows open, that sort of thing, is probably important. In fact, that's what the government advised if you have the virus. Um, I don't think going outside, like in the early hours of the morning when there's no one else around, is necessarily going to be a problem. Get fresh air to get exercise, but this is going to impact all of us. It might well make us think about consumerism. It might make us change our general habits. I mean, this is going to be wartime conditions. I don't think that's hyperbole. But like I say, maybe it will give the planet a bit of a break, and that is a good thing. It really is. Less CO2 in the air, less pollution, less rush. Maybe the whole planet will slow down a little bit. And obviously, if it causes a global recession, that isn't good. But in terms of, there's almost 8 billion of us. Let's just slow down. It might not be a bad thing. So let me know your thoughts. I'm really not worried about the mortality situation. I'm genuinely quite concerned about the social side of things. I'm and I'm just looking at myself about. I mean, the thing with food is a real issue. It is. I support supermarkets prioritizing older people for sure, but not everyone drives. I don't drive. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit concerned about the food situation. At the moment, I'm fine, but the food I've got now isn't going to last forever. After that, will supermarkets still be operating as normal? Will I have the supplies that I need? I admit it's a bit of a concern. Um, that is something that maybe concerns me more than anything. I'll be honest. One interesting thing is that people who've been through this, who've been through the virus, or Italians, for example, that is people who've come from countries that have been really hard hit, have said what we can't do is be complacent. So this isn't a situation of saying, oh, well, it's media sensationalism, let's not overreact. Let's not overreact, but let's also not downplay it. Because with something like this, I think we need to understand what it is. I'm not a virologist. I think we need to be listening to the medical professionals. This is not a time for example, Nick Ferrari on LBC was criticizing the policy for older people. Well, I agree about not stigmatizing them. However, public figures also need to be responsible insofar as not downplaying it. So, if any journalists or others are saying, oh, it's all the government overreacting, they're being irresponsible. We need to take this thing seriously. We do. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know where you are. I'd be particularly interested in hearing perspectives from Italy or Iran or Spain or other countries that are particularly hard hit. The UK at the moment isn't, I don't think it's quite set in, but it will. Um, and we're a densely populated country, so it's the implications are real. We'll get through this. I'll probably make updates so people around the world can tune in to see my perspective. Thank you very much. And I'll be looking at other people's perspectives on this. We'll get through it. Of course, we'll get through it, but um, I think it is an opportunity to kind of slow down a little bit, look at life in context, and just, I don't know, deal with it as it comes. Stay safe, everyone. Wash your hands and just don't be crazy. Don't people who are fighting over food. That's unfortunate. People need to be level-headed, but take the precautions. And it goes without saying, wash your hands.